What I am thinking about today is, I'm here in the kitchen and I'm cooking. As most of you know, I live a vegan, plant-based diet, so I've got some veggies on the steamer right here. And I was just reminded about the history, I guess the unknown, unspoken history of mankind and like where we all came from and how we got to be at this point that we're at right now. So basically, if you go all the way back into history, we see that we see we used to be tribal. So we used to have these like tiny little tribes, and we used scattered about all over the earth. Let's even go back even further. Probably, if we look at the Pangea theory, where all of the continents had used to be all squished together and all touching and was all one continent before the earth had split and shattered and come to be what it is now. Back in probably in those days, when we were still tribal, tiny little tribes all over the place, nomadic, totally nomadic, and everyone was plant based back then. And this is shown through a lot of new research where skeletons have been found and they've checked like bone densities and things like that and seen that you can kind of tell what people's diets were like based on the fossils that have been found. The weird thing is that when fire was discovered and people started using fire, this is when people started eating animals. So this is right around the same time when so you have these tiny little tribes that are able to like just walk. You could literally walk and follow the seasons. So here it would be like there would be all the food and you would eat all the food as you walked with your tribe, and you would just keep walking and eating and walking and eating and walking and eating vegetables and plants and berries and fruits, things like that. And then you would walk literally to another part of the earth that had a different season happening, and you would follow the seasons on this path, and you would end up eventually looping back to where you began, and that food had now replenished and regrown itself. People didn't plant, people didn't farm. This was all just the earth providing for us. As the populations increased, the food became more scarce. This is when fire was discovered around the same time that the populations were growing. And just walking around and trying to find food lying around on the ground everywhere, that just wasn't feeding everybody anymore. All the tribes were multiplying and getting larger. It was becoming more difficult to just keep this going. And that is kind of when it forced people to start looking elsewhere at like the animals around them. So people had already been killing animals for furs and to keep warm and things like that, and to make tools out of their bones and things like that. But no one was primarily eating these animals. It was at the time that fire came in that they started cooking the food. And I mean, other things happened with that too. That immediately began to change our chemistry. We started taking in these different proteins. It changed. It was almost like I want to say it was deviating from the course that we were on, whereas maybe we shouldn't have continued to have such large populations. Maybe we shouldn't have kept having so many babies, but sex feels really good. So there's kind of that thing. When you look at a lot of other animals, they stop having babies when it can't provide for the food anymore. They won't have children if they know that there's not going to be enough food to feed these children. Whether the sex feels good or not, they just won't do it. They abstain from it until it comes a time when the food has replenished again. Then they know that they can have food for their children. Human intervention clearly is just disrupting everything, because for us, sex feels really good. We end up having all these babies, population booms, it's increasing exponentially. We can't stop it now. What do? Rein it back in, folks. We got to rein it back in. We got to stop having all these babies. We need to look back to the earth. We need to stop using the fire to cook the meats. We need to stop agriculture. I mean, the fact that we think we need to settle down and sit and stay and fester in one spot is also affecting the whole outcome. Because back in the day with the nomadic always moving, we were always moving and we were never sitting down and shitting in the same spot over and over, which brought in other animals like rats and mice that came in and got involved in eating the shit. And then diseases started to develop. After diseases, the sicknesses got from the rats into the other animals in the area, because the other animals would eat those rats and get those illnesses and sicknesses, and then we would eat those animals and then we would start to get those sicknesses. So it all, if you rewind all the way back through history, it all rewinds back to that point when we started to like use fire to kill animals, when we deviated from the path, having too many babies, and settling down and planting fields, planting these massive fields of food that doesn't naturally grow. Food doesn't grow in these perfectly straight lines, you know. Food would just randomly be everywhere and you wouldn't know where it was going to be. Like, you would never just, and look at today, you don't walk through the woods, at least not here in Canada. You don't walk through the woods and randomly just find a wild patch of carrots growing anywhere. It doesn't happen. So why are we eating carrots? We need to get back to what's actually here in our local environments and be eating those foods and those plants. I mean, it's good. Broccoli's good. Strawberries are good, but we're not supposed to be eating strawberries in the winter. In the winter, our bodies are changing with the environment around us, and we're supposed to be eating smaller portions. We should have already been eating, storing up our fats in the summer through healthy fats, through the things that we could find in our environment. Storing up those fats for winter, living off of the fats. In this sugar-adapted world that we live in, we're burning off sugars through like apples and things. You would never find 20 oranges that you were going to eat. You would never eat 20 oranges, but it's very common for someone to drink a glass of orange juice, maybe 2 glasses every day. Glasses of apple juice contain at least 10 apples in one apple juice. You're not supposed to be putting that much sugar into your body to become sugar adapted. As you're a fat adapted creature, you're able to burn fats and live off of fat energy instead. This is what I'm thinking about today, folks. Have a good one. Peace.